Skyrim VR is the VR port of Skyrim, a game ported so much it's essentially become a meme. It's available for the Vive, Rift and WMR for about $60 US. This review will focus specifically on how VR is implemented in this title and its current state as of April 2018. Starting with UI, you'll find health, mana and weapon charge displayed near the bottom of your field of view, while the compass can be configured to appear either up high, down low, or not at all. If you're wanting that zero UI full immersion experience, there unfortunately doesn't seem to be an option to hide enemy health bars, short of modding or digging through the INI file. Speaking of breaking immersion, while having your weapons sheathed, your hands appear as controllers, which seems like an oddly simple thing to fix, especially since it's one of the major criticisms made of Fallout 4 VR. Let's talk interactions. Everything mapped to a button press in flat Skyrim, such as looting, activating and moving things around, is likewise mapped to a button press in VR. Yes, being able to actually reach out and pull levers yourself would be great, but this is what it is, a rushed port. After Fallout 4 VR, this shouldn't come as much of a surprise. Menu interactions are done much the same as they are in flat Skyrim, such as trading, looting, inventory management, and crafting. Lockpicking is similarly done much the same, with the touchpad moving the pick on the Vive and the trigger turning the lock. Dialogue is also the same old menu interaction, however when an NPC initiates it, the game abruptly snaps your focus to them, which is a massive immersion breaker and totally unnecessary. The skill menu is as painful to navigate as ever, but is so much more impressive in VR. As is the map view, which is simply breathtaking to use in a Google Earth VR sort of way. Books also look pretty damn great and are very readable with their bold black text, that is, when they're not clipping through the objects around them. Moving on to weapons. Melee works much as it does in flat Skyrim, which unfortunately doesn't translate well. One-handed weapons can't parry, which doesn't really make sense. Two-handed weapons aren't held in two hands, which is silly. And you can't clang your swords together, which may seem trivial, but for me it's a massively underrated immersion killer. Getting stunned in combat is handled by making your weapons temporarily disappear, which, as immersion breaking as that is, it does work pretty well and makes melee combat a lot more tactical. Blocking with two-handed weapons is done by holding them horizontally, causing your movement to slow and quite handily the weapon to flash. It would of course have been nice for blocking to work based on hitboxes, but once again the game is what it is, a rushed port. As for bows, the game has two options: realistic, which works but not all that well, and an alternative which is even worse and is for some reason the default mode. That brings us to magic, which absolutely shines in VR. Not only does it look and feel badass, but being able to aim your spells in two different directions is something of a game changer. Shouts are activated via button press and are HMD directed, as you'd expect. Also as you'd expect is the favourites menu, which is also mapped to a button press. On to locomotion, of which the game offers both teleportation and smooth. As for comfort options, the game offers a comfort vignette of adjustable intensity. Artificial rotation is offered in either incremental or smooth, with adjustable sensitivity in each case. It's also worth pointing out for you lefties out there that the game does offer a choice of dominant hand. Sneaking, like in Fallout 4 VR, is activated either via button press or by physically crouching, the latter of which I prefer but have had to stop using as it currently activates every time I so much as incline my head, and I actually have to jump to toggle it off. Swimming can be accomplished in the same way as on land locomotion, or by breaststroking with your controllers, which I personally found clunky and annoying. Horses are controlled as you would normal smooth locomotion, and although I never much cared for them in flat Skyrim, there's something about being actually physically on the horse that makes the experience a hell of a lot more enjoyable. Now for graphics, which are of course a bit dated. This is after all an 8-year-old game, but that's not to say it still can't put on a show. As far as settings go, the game offers all you'd ever want, and 3 presets if tinkering's not your thing. I had zero issues running everything more or less maxed out on my 1070, but did suffer significant frame drops while recording. Let's now talk bugs, and it wouldn't be a true Bethesda experience without them. Turning off the vignette causes menus to become invisible. Items can at times be impossible to pick up. And some have had issues with their hitbox not tracking properly, though I personally haven't noticed this. On the bright side, I've suffered not a single crash. Touch wood. We come now to the verdict. If you're expecting a reimagined for VR experience, as with Fallout 4 VR, you're going to be sorely disappointed. This is Skyrim ported to VR, not much more and not much less. Is it worth the premium $60 price tag? I think you'll find people on either side of that fence. For me personally, as someone with a few hundred hours in flat Skyrim, I'd have to say I'm pretty happy with it, and I'm surprised just how much life this title's breathed back into a world I thought I'd long ago wrung dry.